This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
All right, Johnny, here's another question for you. One of the major concerns that we hear from folks is the difficulty in potentially transferring, let's say, solar leases or finance agreements to new buyers. How often do you encounter this issue, and how does it impact the sale?
Well, I can't think of, out of all the homes we've sold, a single sale not going through. So it always works out. Okay. But it is definitely a bottleneck. It's probably one of the hardest parts in a transaction with the home that has solar on it. And it's not because of the agent, and it's not because of the seller, and it's not because of the buyer. It's the solar company that it's just hard to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And so if a house has solar, what we recommend people do is have a copy of your contract. Have a copy of your contract and know who to contact at that solar company, because oftentimes they won't even begin the process of transferring ownership until you're in escrow. So it's not like something you can typically start ahead of time. Hopefully that'll change. But what ends up happening where it gets sticky is the person that is living in the home, the seller, can't find the paperwork. They don't know who to contact, and now we're burning days, and we're in escrow. And now the buyer's wanting that information for their inspection period so they can do their due diligence on the property, and we're burning days. And then they get it, and then we call them. And then they say, well, hey, we'll get back to you. And then it takes 3, 9, sometimes days or longer to hear back from the solar company. And so when you're trying to do something with speed and urgency in a real estate transaction, like the typical transaction we're seeing right now is about 20, 21 days. And you've burned up 9 days waiting to hear back from the solar company. You're calling every day, twice a day, trying to get a hold of somebody. That's typically where we see the issues. But I wouldn't let that scare anybody, because like I said, we've never had a transaction not go through because of solar. Yeah.
So let me talk about this a little differently. So I've theorized and postulated before that there's when you go to buy a house, there's so many other things that are competing for your wallet, like your money, right? So you buy a house, and the first thing you want to do is personalize it. Maybe you want to change the landscaping, flooring, painting, whatever. So the whole idea that somebody's going to then want to, either prioritize adding something like solar, or, the other contrast to that is before buying the house, take on somebody else's debt in a solar lease or loan.
Yeah.
I think that that's the biggest reason people have pause. Like somebody falls in love with a house, realizes it has solar, and maybe it's a solar loan or a lease, and we're seeing difficulty. The industry has seen difficulty in terms of transferring those, but I think the industry is meeting the challenge. I think that what we're seeing right now is versions of contracts that are coming out and agreements that are coming out because solar is much more widely adopted now than it was even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I think the marketplace is changing, and I think what we're seeing is better versions, quicker transactions happen with varying different contracts. And we talked about this one contract. I'll illuminate a little bit more. But do you think that there's a difference between finance versus lease versus owned when it comes to?
So lease meaning you're leasing it from the company.
Yeah.
And finance means you have a monthly payment.
Yeah. Our experience has been leases are the stickiest to transfer.
Yeah.
Because there's
the person has to qualify.
The person has to qualify, and it's harder to qualify for leases than traditional financing. If I go lease a car, I have to have a better credit profile than somebody that finances a car.
Yep.
Right? So the same thing is true of leases. Leases, and then I think that there is a bit of a negative connotation with a lot of folks about this idea of a lease, that there's negative energy associated with the term lease. So somebody falls in love with a house, now I got to take over this lease. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. So obviously in the short term, you're saving money. At the end of the day, your cost should be lower than what it would be if you were buying directly from the from PG&E, from the utility provider. But sometimes people they like to think about things, and a lot of people overthink it, and they're like, well, I want to put my own solar system on, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, and now that lease is in the way. And so sometimes it can be a deterrent, but I've never seen anybody not buy a house because of the lease. It's been more of like a mark against the property, like, oh, the backyard's not as big as I wanted. oh, there's a solar lease, I wish it was owned. And then we'll just write out the lease, and then we'll get the solar system we want.
On the negotiation side, how often do you see a buyer want to negotiate with the seller to have the seller pay off the system?
Oh, that's a really good question. Almost always.
Okay.
Almost always. And it's weird because when you're qualifying for a home loan, they don't factor in your estimated utility usage, like in your debt to income ratio. That's not part of the conversation. But then when there's a solar lease, all of a sudden
now that's part of the debt to income ratio.
Now
that's part of the equation.
Yeah.
And it's possible that if somebody didn't pay it off, that buyer may not qualify to both buy the house and qualify to take over the lease, right?
Yeah. And so what we are seeing is a lot of homeowners will pay off the lease.
Yeah. So let me give you a contrast to that. So what I mentioned before was more and more change within the industry. So there's a company out of Florida, NextEra Energy, third largest utility in the nation today. They own Florida Power and Light in Florida. They're trying to muscle into PG&E territory right now and compete with PG&E for energy business from homeowners in PG&E territory. And they're doing so on the back of solar. So they can't come in and replicate PG&E's utility infrastructure, energy grid.
Yep.
PG&E generates a lot of energy from hydroelectric power from watershed off the Sierra Nevada mountains. And so it's very difficult for somebody to come in and replicate that. They can't do that. But PG&E doesn't own the sun, although I bet they'd like to, and they don't own sunlight. So the idea is that this company will install a power plant, a system, a solar generating power plant with battery storage and photovoltaic panels to create the energy that the system is producing. They'll do all the permitting, do all the labor, do all of that at zero out-of-pocket cost to a homeowner, as long as the homeowner agrees to purchase the energy that the system produces. Now, for context, anybody that's listening right now can look at their PG&E bill. You'll see two charges for your energy cost. One is generation, what it actually costs to make the energy. And then the secondary or ancillary charge is delivery. What a lot of people don't realize is it's twice as expensive to get the energy to your home as it costs to make the energy in the first place. So if PG&E charges you $200 to make the energy, they'll charge you $400 additional to get it to your house. You now have a $600 utility bill for $200 worth of actual energy.
Wow.
So the benefit of having the solar plant at the house and creating a situation where somebody can make solar energy at the property is there is no delivery charge. All you've got is the sun energy. All you've got is the making of the energy. So that's why it's cheaper. So these programs, guaranteed transferable, it's not debt. You're not taking over somebody's loan. It's not a lease. You're not taking over somebody's lease. Both of those show up on a credit profile or credit report. This is a power purchase program. It's the closest thing to having an alternative to PG&E where you can source your energy from the sun and deal with a different utility company as the primary source of your purchasing, and then PG&E becomes the ancillary or secondary source. Do you see that being maybe an answer to some of the challenge of transferability, because it's not a loan, it's not a lease, and it's guaranteed transferable to a new home buyer? Almost the same process of them signing up with PG&E for new energy with their system.
Yeah, so you're getting base. So yes, I think that definitely helps without a doubt. It just comes down to how much are they saving? Like what's the cost to buy that electricity from the Florida company versus from PG&E?
So let me give you the contrast. So 43 cents currently daytime rate for energy cost in California PG&E. So anytime you use PG&E energy up until 3 p.m., 43 cents. From 3 p.m. till 9 p.m., 62 cents in PG&E territory. So 43 to 62. This NextEra program, generally, the more energy you buy, if you're a heavy energy user like you and I are, you'll get a cheaper rate. It's kind of like Costco. The more you buy, you get bulk pricing. But we're seeing somewhere between, I would say, low side, 18, 19 cents to mid-20s, 26, 27 on the high side. So imagine being able to get a majority of your energy at literally half the cost, if not more, than the same with PG&E. Plus, the kicker, they cap the growth of it. They cap how much it can go up every year. Currently, PG&E doesn't have a cap on rates, and they don't have a cap on growth, right? Yeah. How many times they can increase the rates. So the cap is 3.5%. So get this. This is how I explain it. Consumer, This is going to cut your bill in half with PG&E for a system you don't have to buy. It's then going to slow the growth to where it takes 21 years before your new bill with the solar equals what you're paying PG&E
right
today.
now. Yep.
Right?
Love it. And so that it comes down to understanding the difference in the savings. So if that's the main barrier that we see when people are trying to figure out, hey, is this a good decision for my family? Like dollars and cents, what's it going to save? And so if you say, hey, based off the kilowatt hours that the system will produce, this is what the savings are going to be. Absolutely, it's a no-brainer. It's like, I always joke, I wish I could just toss an electrical cord over into my neighbor's house in Roseville and just pull off of his house. But essentially that's what you're doing. Is now you're pulling from the sun, and now you're getting Roseville SMUD prices in PG&E territory.
You're effectively, what I tell people is it's going back almost 10 years in PG&E territory. If you could buy PG&E energy at a cost from 10 years ago, how much of it would you buy and how much of it would you want?
Yep.
Right? And then additionally, that slowing the growth feature of it, I think, is a real big deal. Slowing the growth is the critical thing, because I think right now we're on the path in California. This next 10 years, so for context, PG&E over the last 10 years has raised rates about 12.5% a year. That's what the effective rate of growth has been. So 12.5% a year. That's caustic. I think this next 10 years is even going to be worse than the prior 10 years, because California wants to be carbon neutral by 2040. Newsom wants everyone driving an electric vehicle by 2035. The California Air Resources Board is getting rid of natural gas hot water heaters and furnaces by 2030. So California is going to force more energy usage on us all. PG&E is going to charge us more because they don't want to go bankrupt again. They're spending about $3 million a mile to underground lines. And meanwhile, the California in general wants to be the number 5 economy in the whole world, wants to be carbon neutral in a really aggressive time frame. Yep. Right? So I think this next 10 years is going to be worse.
That's before you even said that. That's what I was thinking about. Like, go back 10 years. Okay, 10 years, that's already happened. I'm more nervous about what's the next 10 years look like.
Yeah.
Because that's going to impact my pocketbook. That's going to impact, my affordability in terms of what vacations are we doing, where are we going, and what the value of the home is.
Yeah.
Because if now all of a sudden that discrepancy is just growing between Roseville Electric and PG&E, like, your house is going to be negatively impacted if you don't have some type of a solar system on it.
Think of it this way. I agree. If what we fear comes, houses without solar, I think whatever version of it is that they have, houses without solar are going to be at a big disadvantage compared to houses with solar, because who's going to want to be fully exposed to $1,200, $1,500, whatever the amount is at that juncture.
Yeah, right? And it's just heartbreaking when I go into some of these houses. There are people on a fixed income. Like, there's they can't go and work overtime. They spent their life, they budgeted responsibly, and now this curveball has been tossed to them, either through homeowners insurance and or utility costs.
Yeah,
and it's really heartbreaking to see that situation. But here's the thing: is that people are like, sometimes, and I get myself wrapped up in this too. Like, let's not go down doom and gloom. Let's not worry about what might happen. Let's just live on like what's the situation we're in today. And today, forget what might happen. Today, if you install a solar system, you're money ahead. Yeah. Today, your home is more desirable.
Yes.
Today, your home stands out from a house that doesn't have solar. And so, if you're trying to figure out and project in the future, and you're just feeling uncomfortable with that, like, just know that today you can save money.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Thank you so much, Johnny. I really appreciate your time today. This was a very enlightening conversation.
Yeah, I loved it.
I appreciate your wisdom and knowledge that you shared with the audience. So thank you very much for your participation today. It was valuable. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So you want to sell your house, you've built up equity, but you don't want to go through all the hassles of open houses. You don't want to do all of those repairs on the floor, get rid of all that junk in the backyard and the garage. Here's what you do. Get a guaranteed offer today for your home in as-is condition. It's fast, it's simple, it's private, it's safe. And again, your home in as-is condition, a guaranteed offer today. Just reach out to Johnny Jennings and the Made for More team. You can just Google Made for More Realty today and get more for your home. You expect more? Get more with Johnny Jennings. License number 581837.